What's up, everybody? Peter Exodus Okafor here for another episode of Three Things of the Month, and we're doing February 2024. And so, as you know, I just kind of, as I go through life, I'm always looking at music and things related to music. And I always like to do three things that may not fit an episode, but are interesting tidbits or trends that I see. So the first thing, I just named the three things of the month. So Music Choice Channel, I believe, the cable systems and Dish Network and all that stuff have the same thing. But how some of those channels have changed in the last 3 to 4 years. So that's number one. Number two, the last rock song to hit number one on the Billboard charts. That I ran across that and I thought that was interesting. And number three, looks like soon we'll get a sale of the Queen and the Michael Jackson music catalogs. And it's interesting because with Queen now, we're actually, for the first time I've ever run across revenue numbers as far as that Queen generates yearly. Was some of these prices I'm seeing that they're paying for these catalogs. I'm like, how long is it going to take you to make that money back? It's a very interesting phenomenon. And look, if someone was offering me, 9 figures for my music catalog, I'd jump on it too. So anyway, let's get started. So thing one, a change I've seen in the last 3 to 5 years on the Music Choice Channel. There's, 50 to 60 of these channels, and often they're by genre and have their subjects. But here's what I've noticed. 2 things. 5 years ago, when you would do the blues channel on a Music Choice, it was 50-50 between the old 40s and 50s masters and newer blues artists. And that's really changed to almost 90-10 for newer contemporary blues, and then, the oldies. Not a bad thing, because, it tells me that, everybody was worried that the guitar, was dead and nobody cares about the guitar because it's not in pop music as much. Well, the guitar is alive and well, and so that's a good thing. And the blues is alive and well. I mean, it's a niche. I mean, you're not going to make, you're not going to, have, 18 cars and 8 mansions by being a blues artist, but you can make a living at it. So that's the, but the change is interesting. The other change I've noticed in the Oldies channel, a few years ago, the Oldies channel consisted of Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Fats Domino and Elvis and that ilk. Now the Oldies channel consists of the lighter mid-60s fare. So Crimson and Clover, Call It Mellow Yellow. Zeppelin isn't here, but the Oldies channel is now overlapping with the early classic rock, the late 60s. So that the heavier stuff, like Zeppelin and Hendrix and that stuff is still on classic rock, but the poppier kind of stuff is now on the Oldies channel. And if you want a Music Choice, if you want the classic blues, it doesn't exist anymore on Music Choice. And the same thing with what I call the roots of rock and roll and popular music, the 50s artists. You got to go to Spotify and find playlists on that now. So it's interesting. And what's going on, demographically, the folks who were listening to, grew up listening to to the classic blues of the late 40s and through the 50s, to be blunt about it, many of them have passed on, and that it's the same era too when you're talking about the originators and the founders of rock and roll / popular music. Many of the folks who grew up listening to that unfortunately have passed on. So music's choices, rationale's like there's not a market out there for it. Luckily, you still, there's still really good Spotify playlists, but I just find that whole phenomenon really interesting. Thing two, so the last rock song to hit number one on the Billboard Pops charts. It was 2001, so 23 years ago. Nickleback, How You Remind Me. And right now, that's still the highest streamed song Nickelback has ever put out, 947 million streams. So doing pretty good. It's going to join the Billionaire Club first. And I mean, the Billionaire Club is the equivalent now to a platinum album, essentially. I don't even know what a gold, probably 500 million would be considered gold. I mean, that's the benchmark. That's what you try to achieve, now. And it tells you, too, that it's a very, very singles-driven, industry. And I've talked about this in other episodes on this channel at various times. So, yeah, 2001 Nickelback, How You Remind Me. Now, I'm not I think it's fitting that this is the last rock song to hit number one. I like the song, and I know a lot of people loathe Nickelback. I like the song, and I love Rockstar. But it's fitting that a rock band that many folks loathe, and rock fans and others, had the last number one, the real last number one rock song. So I find that it's just interesting. Again, I've never done a deep dive into Nickelback's catalog, but I like this song and I love Rockstar, so I'll stick with that. If you want to post comments otherwise, that's your business. I mean, everybody has their music tastes, Those two songs don't bother me. And again, as I said, I haven't done a deep dive into Nickelback, but hey, cut the dudes some slack. I mean, nobody's forcing you to listen to them. Finally, the sale or the negotiations of the sale for the Michael Jackson catalog and the Queen catalog. So, Michael Jackson, the family owns his catalog, and this, the rumor out there is they're trying to get $1 billion. Now, the record right now is Bob Dylan, depending on what articles you read, anywhere from $400 to $500 million is what he got for his catalog. Queen's trying to get 1.2 billion pounds. Now, I don't know what the exchange rate today for the dollars to pounds is, but let's just say, it's fairly close, because, I mean, they're both first world economies, so I'm just going to say 1.2 billion pounds and treat it as, over $1 billion, I don't know how those two fluctuate off of each other, but, I mean, look, they're 1.2 billion pounds, $1 billion is probably, averaged out is probably pretty similar. And all the band members do have their own lawyers involved. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And again, Queen is a very interesting band. I think I did classic songs on Bohemian Rhapsody. And, I mean, coming out of the 70s, I mean, Queen is the biggest rock band in history now. It wasn't the case in the, when Freddie passed. I mean, they probably wouldn't have even cracked the top 10 in sales, but they were always bigger in Europe, in the late 80s going on than they were in the U.S. But yeah, but they have more streams than the Beatles now, and I know baby boomers don't like to hear that. Older Gen Xers like myself, some of them don't like to hear that. But I mean, Freddie Mercury's story is compelling. They did a great job with the movie, and millennials, particularly the younger millennials and Gen Z, just love them. And I mean, Freddie Mercury was a super talented, amazing lead singer, charismatic, had a great voice, and great lead guitarist also with the band, and drummer and bass. So they were just very good musicians. They were very good songwriters. So, but yeah, I mean, you could sit there and say, well, they weren't, on top of the rock and roll world when I was, in my 30s and 20s. Well, they are now, and going forward, what matters is the future, not the past. So, but yeah, I mean, 1.2 billion, pounds is what they're looking at. So we have numbers. So here we go. Going forward, well, from 2016 to 2018, the Queen, their net income off of their catalogs and different properties that will be in this package was 13.5 million pounds. Yeah, interesting. From 2020 to 2022, they averaged 22.2 million pounds. Now, Billboard, and this is where I'm getting these numbers from, is Billboard, but they estimate going forward that Queen is going to bring in 45 million pounds per year. So $45 million a year, that's $450 million per decade. So we're looking at over 20 years before, they're going to get their money back on this. So interesting. Again, I'm intrigued by why, and again, I'm not blaming the artist. If someone offers me 9 figures for my catalog, I am selling. But it's interesting because, the profit margin there is it's not what it is in other industries. So that's all I'm saying. But yeah, so just throwing that out there as I get in there more. At some point, I'm going to take a deeper dive into the whole buying and selling of catalogs and what that means and stuff, and how you curate and get the most value, as I see it, out of a catalog you purchased. So anyway, thanks for coming through. This is a short episode, but hey, short but sweet but good. Got 5 of my own albums out on all the streaming services, and connected right here on YouTube. I write science fiction and fantasy, and I have 2 novels and a novella on Amazon. So thanks again, and I will see you next episode.